This video is going to be a general overview, kind of summarizing all of the aftermarket upgrades I have on my Sur-Ron. So let's see where to start. I guess we'll start from front to back. Not a whole lot going on in the front. I think that those fenders there are stock. Not really sure. I bought it used from a guy. It had 11 miles on it, so basically new, but he had installed a couple upgrades before I even got my hands on it, so not sure where those fenders came from, but I haven't really seen them like that on other Sur-Rons before, but maybe, I don't know. Regardless, they work very well. Moving on, I guess we'll talk about lights next. I've got the stock Sur-Ron light along with a bike light, and the reason I have a bike light is if it's at night and I want to ride along the bike paths, if I want to be treated like a bike rather than a motorcycle. So that can be very useful if maybe you had a beer or two, and you know, I don't recommend driving while inebriated, of course, but if you just don't want to deal with the same level of scrutiny by the police on the roads, I can turn on that light, go real slow, 10 miles per hour or so along the bike paths, kind of putter my way home very safely. So that's the purpose of having a small bike light on there. It's just a little bit less blinding than the super bright Sur-Ron light. I think people don't really appreciate that when you're just riding on the bike path next to the sidewalk and they get a spotlight in their face. So then with that, we'll talk about the mirror. Got a mirror right there. I think it's designed to be mounted above the handle, but I like it below just to make it lower profile on the top of the bike. Very useful. It's pretty much essential if you're riding on the street. And I believe that's a requirement to make the bike street legal. It's kind of a legal gray area, but you're going to want a mirror regardless. This mirror came in a pack of 2, but I only decided to mount 1 because that's all I need. It's got a nice carbon fiber print on the back. Yeah, overall good mirror, real cheap off of Amazon. Just search up motorcycle mirrors. Then next we got some Pro Taper grips. So those are quite nice. I honestly don't think you can go wrong with grips because it doesn't really matter that much. Although I will say the Pro Taper grips, I'm a little bit disappointed because as you can see, we're having some wear and tear on there. I've only had them on for maybe 3 or 4 months, and it took about, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks for it to start wearing off, so not great. Let's see, what's next? So we're done with the front of the bike. We'll move to the chassis. So on here, I've got an upgraded bash plate from Luna. That was one of the upgrades that came on the bike. I would argue that you definitely want an upgraded bash plate just because the stakes are kind of high. If you hit a curb or hit a log or something and smash that motor, you're gonna be out quite a bit of money. I think I saw the replacement motors on Luna for like $800, so not something you want to have to replace if you can avoid it. I'm not going to talk about the pegs quite yet because that's a whole can of worms, but I will talk about the peg brackets right here. So that's this whole piece that connects the peg to the rest of the bike or to your peg extenders. These were my first upgrade that I put on. It's CNC machined aluminum with some welding on it. I bought those because the second day I had the bike, I had not quite gotten used to the torque yet, and I flipped the bike. I looped it in an intersection, and it landed right on the peg, and it busted that bracket off. So the aluminum that comes with the bike, not super robust when you're talking about dropping the entire weight of the bike on that one part. I think it's cast aluminum is what you call it. not as strong as milled CNC aluminum. So highly recommend that upgrade. It was like, I think 90 bucks for both of those, and like for both sides, and another support bar in between, so not too bad. I don't think these will ever break. I mean, maybe if you drop the whole bike on it again, it could, but much stronger than the stock. Then we've got our peg extenders here. I think it drops the peg like 1.5 inches or something, puts it a little further back. Not super significant, but if you're, I would say, above 5'8", you probably want those, just for the extra leg room if you got long legs. Moving on to the other size upgrade on this bike, we have the seat extenders. This brings the seat up and back a few inches. Highly recommend that. Again, if you're 5'8" or taller. I just think it makes the bike better anyway, because it sort of adds to the overall profile. You may run into some issues doing that with the rear light here, because the wire is like exactly as long as it needs to be on the stock version. So if you extend the seat back, you're going to need a longer wire. So what I ended up doing was just chopping the wire off, and then just adding some extension wires in there. I just took some wires from a USB cable and wired them in, and then used like 3 or 4 things of heat shrink just to keep it waterproof. Another upgrade that, let me finish talking about the seat extenders. They give you this piece because since it brings the seat back more, your latch will no longer fit. So if you get the Luna kit, they will give you all the hardware you need to fix the latch so it still functions. Let me show you. So it comes with, it's kind of hard to see with the lighting. It comes with this 3D printed, well, it's not 3D printed, maybe it is, I can't tell, this plastic piece. I painted it black because I just wanted it to match. That will hold the battery in still after you have the extender on, because the battery no longer touches up against the plate up there. And then this one, when I got it, it didn't quite fit my battery, so I had to shave some away with the X-Acto knife, and that kind of notch cutout fits very nicely right on top of the handle, so you get a little bit of padding there. Highly recommend. Well, that's essential if you're going to put seat extenders on. And then it has kind of a latch cover too. You can get aftermarket of these from different manufacturers. One thing I'm not happy about with that kit is you can see here these bolts are rusted. I've only had them on for like 2 months. It's maybe been rained on twice, and yeah, not cool. So I think Luna could do better with maybe using some stainless steel. They're rusted out on the bottom a little bit too. Yeah, that's kind of unacceptable, but not a big deal all in all. Like I've said this before, I got stock battery, stock controller. Nothing fancy there, just because I can't really justify dropping $2,000–3,000 on a 72 volt system. Something that I am very proud of on this bike is my toolkit that I built in. So when you install the seat extenders, you get some extra room in here next to the battery. So I decided I was going to put a little toolkit in that will give me all the tools I need to disassemble. So I'm not going to go through it all now, but I'll show you some of the highlights. I got a spoke adjustment, a spoke wrench. Got just various bits that might be needed. I have a ratchet and some Allen wrenches and that kind of, all that good stuff. Basically everything I need to totally disassemble the bike is in there. There may be some other stuff I'm missing, but to give it a test, I've been just doing all my repairs with that kit. So as I realize I'm missing stuff, I'll figure it out and, you know, add more stuff to the kit as I go along. What else? We'll talk about 4 more upgrades before we really get to the pegs. I'm going to save that for last. This mud flap was also on the bike when I got it. Essential upgrade in my opinion. You do not want mud in your suspension, and the rear wheel is set up to kick mud straight into your suspension. So highly recommend that. I think you can get them for like 15 bucks on eBay. I like the rubber one just because it'll stretch a little bit. I don't see a need to get like 3D printed version or any of that, so highly recommend that. I had to extend it a little bit with some fabric I found, just because the seat extender, again, another problem it causes is this stock piece of rubber no longer long enough to reach the top of the seat with those extenders on. So you might want to factor that into when you buy one. You just want to make sure it's a good length for what you need. So this one's a hidden upgrade. I'm having a hard time seeing the camera here. Aha, okay, you can see it. So this guy right here is an alarm system. So it comes with a remote on a little fob. Let me grab that. So you get a little fob, and that allows you to set an alarm on your bike. So if somebody moves it without disarming the fob, you're going to have an alarm, and hopefully that'll scare them away from stealing your bike. That's a big concern of mine because I'm normally parking it around town, so, and leaving it unattended for a while. So I always use a really good bike lock, and then I got that alarm as an added measure of security, because there's no good excuse for touching my bike unless I tell you, and in that case I will disable the alarm. Moving on, something I almost missed is the seat. This is a nice upgraded Luna seat. They had recently come out with it. I'm a big fan. It's way more comfortable than the stock seat. The stock seat is honestly horrible. So I think Luna has the best prices on seats usually. I've seen some other makes on eBay, but those are more going to run you in the $150 range. I think this seat from Luna was like $50 or $60. So I would go with Luna on that one. This is OEM part, the little tail fender. However, I broke mine when I had the accident where I looped it and I broke the peg. So I rode without that for a while, but I recently just got the OEM replacement. I kind of regret not getting the extended fender you can find, but I think it's a little bit ludicrous for them to be charging like $40 to $60 for an extended fender on eBay. So kind of waiting to see if I can maybe 3D model a new one, or I don't know, maybe somebody will come up with a cheaper one that, I feel okay with purchasing. Got some peppermint coffee here, very tasty. So moving on, just got a couple more to go over. Brake pads. So these are Shimano brake pads, I believe. Can't remember the model number right now, but if you look, it'll take you 5 minutes of research to figure out what sort of brake pads they use. It's like HO something is the model. These brake pads, huge improvement over the stock brake pads. I've still got the stock ones on the front there. You can tell because there's no heat sink on them like these have. This is the heat sink. Yeah, these are easily twice as good as the stock brake pads. I highly recommend upgrading. They're a little pricey. I think they were $45, $50 for one pair of brake pads. But it's the biggest upgrade you can get to your brakes. Stupid plane. Sorry about that. Yeah, so highly recommend upgrading brake pads. That should be one of the first things you do. It's relatively inexpensive, and it improves safety, and it just improves the overall snappy feeling of the bike. Alright, we're going to go over to the other side and talk about the chain now. I mentioned this in my introduction video. but I have a SRT O-ring gold link chain. It's 420 chain, as pretty much anybody should know that has a Sur-Ron. I went from the stock Sur-Ron chain that comes with it to this gold O-ring chain. I don't really know if the stock chain is an O-ring chain, but if it is an O-ring chain, it's kind of a shitty O-ring chain, just because it got really dirty and it rusted a lot. It rusted almost immediately after I got it. Maybe that was because I didn't clean it enough or something, but your chain should be more robust than that. So, but the problem with this chain is it really reduces my range. Normally I'm getting about 25 miles out of a charge with the stock chain, but since I put this guy on, I'm averaging closer to 20 per charge, so kind of disappointing. I think it is a lot quieter. It sounds good, but I think I'm gonna go back to non-O-ring chain because I would rather have the range, and I kind of like the loud electric bike sound. So yeah, not super happy with that, but I'm sure it'll last forever. It's a pretty high quality chain from what I can tell. The only thing with that is when I ordered this one from Luna, and they did not ship it with the O-ring master link. They didn't ship it with any master link, so I contacted them, and they were, they made it right. They shipped me out a master link for no more cost to me. But that's not the first time Luna has left stuff out of my order. They left out some bolts with the seat extender kit, so yeah, they need some better quality control. But something to note, regular master links will not fit on this, so you need to get an O-ring master link. That's going to make a big difference. But yeah, like I said, I'm probably going to get rid of that and just keep it on standby for if I ever need a new chain. Another thing I have in my repair kit is an extra master link, just in case, since that's kind of the weak point. Moving on, the back tire I just replaced about a week or two ago. I'm very happy with this tire. As I'm sure you have heard from other places, the stock tires are not great. And just riding knobbies on the street wears them down pretty fast, so you're gonna go through tires if that's what you're doing, which is what I'm doing. Alright, I think we've been over everything so far. Now I'm going to talk about the pegs. So these pegs, obviously not stock, aftermarket pegs I bought on Amazon. They were pretty cheap. However, they do not fit the Sur-Ron well, so that was a mistake on my part, just being lazy and cheap. Let me see if I can get a good video of this from the bottom. Yeah, so here there's a gap, so if you don't fill that gap, the peg like kind of sags down lower, and it's not level with the ground, so it's super annoying to ride on. It feels like you're balancing the entire time, and it wears out your shoes fast. So I was trying to epoxy some washers in here to give it a spacer, but I've not had good luck with that. They always fall out, so I need a better solution. I'm thinking welding, or I don't know. That's a problem in progress, but for the meantime, I've just been jamming sticks or wood in there and snapping them off, and that gives me a decent amount of spacer, and that's been working pretty well. I mean, it's something like I'll have to put more wood in there every week or so, which is kind of annoying, but that's the best fix I can come up with, because all the really involved fixes where I'll cut washers up and glue them in there and wait for it to dry and all that, those usually fall out like within a week. So still working on that one. Can't weld to this because it's aluminum. I mean, you can weld aluminum, but you need fancy equipment, not just a standard welder. And this is steel, but I'm a little hesitant to modify this part because it's going to impact the other pegs I can put on in the future. So I may end up just getting new pegs and getting rid of these, because these chew up my shoes pretty fast, and they obviously do not fit. So that's something to be careful of. There are lists out there online about the type of pegs that work, but a lot of those recommendations are going to be like $80 pegs, like $80 to $120, which I think is absolutely absurd for some pegs. So I just went with some cheap $35 ones on Amazon, and now I'm paying the price because I've spent hours trying to fix them with no luck. So yeah, I believe that's all the upgrades, all the major upgrades I really have. I mean, even the minor ones too. But I hope that just gave you a good idea of sort of what I've decided to do with my bike. I'd like to, I want to get a 26-inch wheel in the front, but based on the research I've done, it's not going to fit with that stock, the RST Killa fork, just because we've got this support bar here, this guy, that's going to prevent you from getting most tires on in the front. So Milk Racing has specified that they have two tires, two 26-inch tires that will work with a 21-inch rim, or I guess they're 21-inch tires, my bad, I misspoke. 21-inch tires that work on a 21-inch rim. They're like trials tires, so they're going to be not very grippy. And you kind of want a grippy tire for the front wheel, so not a great option. And then you're going to be stuck buying these, you know, $80 trials tires because that's the only thing that will fit. It's not ideal. Basically, you need to get a new fork if you want to get a 21-inch wheel on the front, which, you know, just the wheel on its own with the tire and a tube, that's going to cost you about $500. That's kind of on the low end, but that's what you can get the wheel from Milk Racing, and then a tire and a tube from Amazon for. So that's not bad on its own, but when you factor in another fork, you could expect to spend at a minimum $1,000 for a decent fork for a Sur-Ron. There's not a lot of options out there. Based on what I've seen, you're kind of stuck with the, what is it, the DVO Onyx. There's another DVO fork you can use too, and then the Marizaki Bomber 58 and a Fox 40, all of which, I mean, the Fox 40 is $2,000, but the other ones are running you about $1,000, so that's a $1,500 upgrade to get a 21-inch front wheel, at least, probably more than that. But I've heard it makes the bike feel a lot different. I was wanting to get that wheel and then put the they call it the progressive rear suspension link, which is this guy here. You can upgrade that so it will basically lift the back wheel off the ground more. Well, it'll push it into the ground more, so it'll lift your bike off the ground. And that buys you quite a bit more clearance underneath, along with that 21-inch front wheel. And then I think that's going to be necessary to get one of those if you want to get that 21-inch front wheel, because it kind of evens the bike out, right? You got the bigger wheel on the front, so that's going to bring that side up, and then in return you get the progressive rear suspension that brings the back down, so it's kind of just going to lift the whole bike up. That's the theory anyways. Haven't tried it, of course, because I don't have, you know, $2,000 to spend on that. So we'll have more upgrades coming as we go, and more videos. I'm going to make a video specifically about what's in my toolkit, and then I might do a video on chains when I get a new chain in, the non-O-ring chain, and then I do some testing, because I want to do an overview of the sort of the range that you're going to get out of each. So I need to do a few more test runs with this chain to just kind of hone in on my average range, and then I'll order a new chain, a non-O-ring chain, and put that on and do some riding with that and see how far it'll get me. And I'm probably going to do some repair videos in the future as well. Just kind of routine maintenance stuff that I've figured out the hard way. I'm sure there's other people doing it, but it never hurts to have another video to watch, see somebody else's way to do it. So, thank you for watching, everybody. Still haven't really decided on a name for this channel yet, since this is going to be my first real video. Just kind of an overview of the upgrades. But thank you for watching. Please like and comment as many times as you can. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.